Hey, can you really make your 3D printer quieter? Stay tuned, I'm going to show you how. Hey, welcome to the show. My name is Richard Cleveland. I'm your host here on the First Layer 3 times a week. On Monday, we started our talk about making your 3D printer a little bit more quiet. You hear a pin drop? No, not really. But we did talk a little bit about getting rid of some of that noise from the 3D printer that you may have in your home. And it doesn't have to be a CR10, it can be a Wanhao, it can be an Anycube, it can be an ANET A8 for all that matters. What we're going to do today is we're going to install the dampeners on the X and the Y axis. The only reason that we're going to those two axes is because those two create the most noise. We're going to also compare these two cubes that I have in my hand to what we printed off before we put the steppers or the dampeners on, and what we get when the dampeners have been installed. So let's jump right into it, and we're going to show you a little bit of sound volume as well, using my phone and an app that allows me to hear the ambient noise and what decibel rate it's at. So let's just jump right into it. So as you can see, as we bounce up in decibels, we're only going at about 40 on the X and Y. When I talk, of course, it gets much louder. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the dampeners on the X and Y axis and see if that changes our result. So we're going to start with the y-axis because that seems to be where the most amount of noise is coming from. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen up these 4 screws. So we'll need our screwdriver for that. And these are in there quite tight, so you may want to break them first. Let's turn off the machine. We'll unplug the stepper motor. We'll get our little tool in there to break them. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to replace the screws that came with our 3D printer because these are very soft and they strip very easily, with some that are a little bit better and a little bit more heavy duty. So all we're going to do is we're going to place that in there, and we are going to, this is a 6mm screw, by the way, for anybody that is following along. And now we want to make sure that we've got the right Allen key. In this case, we need the 2.5. We'll just take that and we're just going to drop it in there. You really want to make sure that you have these down tight, but don't tighten them until you've got this in place. So now that we've got them both in place and we know that they're square, we're going to go ahead and just give them a little bit of a tighten. You want to make sure that these are tight. Now, one thing that you do want to watch for on these particular dampeners is there's two holes that are larger and two holes that are threaded. The threaded holes you will need to go through the bracket of the 3D printer, but not until we get the pulley back on. So we're going to do that right now. So now we've got the threaded holes still free. We want to make sure that we turn our connector towards where it was prior, and we're just going to put this into place, drop in one of these screws just to get things started. There we go. That one is started. Now we're going to take our pulley and we're going to slide it back on and slide our pulley back on. We're also going to tighten up that pulley, but first what we want to do is we want to make sure that that pulley's in the right spot. We know that those grub screws are a little smaller, and we want to make sure that we have one of those grub screws on a flat plane. So we know where this should be, right about there. Just going to hold that into place. We're going to tighten this one grub screw. Tighten it down. Get it as tight as you can. And the reason that I'm pulling up on this is so that I have slack. The reason I'm pulling up is so that I have slack in this line. Okay? Now I'm just going to turn that and get to the other grub screw. There we are. Now we're just going to tighten that one down so it doesn't go anywhere. Change out our bit. Go back to the larger one. Get our other screw started. There we go. Got the bottom one snugged up. We don't have it completely tight yet. Now be careful, you don't want screws that are too long that will go back and touch the motor, but you also don't want screws that are too short. So we're just going to give this a nice little tighten here. There we go. Nice little tighten here. There we go. That motor's not going anywhere. We can plug it back in. Our belt should be back in the same tension. Yep, it's right where we want it to be. We're just going to go back and we're going to tighten up those grub screws just a little bit more, just to make sure that we have everything in order. Just give that one a half turn. Don't over tighten these. There you go. Now, let's go back and see exactly what we have for sound. Alright, so we're going to turn on the printer again and we'll see exactly where we're at. So at idle, we're hovering right around 24 to 26. And now with the fans turned on, it's hovering right around 30. So we can see on the Y that we've got certainly a much quieter Y-axis. Now we should do the X. Alright, so the first thing that we need to do is remove this little sticker on the front. We're just going to take it by the corner and slowly move it out of the way. And we'll set it right up on top of our printer box here. There we go. And now we need to get in there and take those screws out. Again, you want to unplug the X-axis motor. And in this case, we're also going to unplug the X-axis end stop. We'll put those aside for now. Once you pull off that last one, the whole cover comes away. So now we can remove the belt, remove the motor, change out the grub screw, so now we're just going to loosen up this grub screw here and this grub screw here and remove that. We're going to take our other motor mount and stick it right over top, just like we did the last one, and we're going to get a couple of screws to go in there. in order to reassemble the motor with the new dampener on it onto the 3D printer, you're going to need two M3 by 6 screws and two M3 nylocks, or nylon locking nuts. Now let's go on and start to reassemble the 3D printer. So we're going to start with our nylon, or with our M3 screws. We're going to put those in. Now our decibel range is quite consistent. If you hear me talking and the decibel range going up, that's just because of the voiceover. But when we watch the decibel meter, it only sits around 30 at idle. So there you have it. Quite a drop in sound just by adding a dampener to the X and the Y. All right, so let's have a look at the cubes that we printed. This first cube that we're looking at was printed before the stepper dampeners went on, and you can see that that's a pretty nice print. This was printed at 0.2 millimeters at 40 millimeters per second on the CR10, and this is a 60 by 60 cube. We can see there's our top layer, looks really good, and our bottom layer looks amazing. So this was the result before, and now this is the result after. Taking a look at the top, there's no real noticeable difference in the top and the bottom, or the top of the second one, which was incidentally done after we did the stepper dampeners. Then we'll take a look all the way around, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that at all. There's no ghosting. There's a little bit of raised area around, but that I think is on both of them. So that seems nice. Again, this was printed at 0.2 millimeters in layer height. And I can feel, as I rub my finger down it, that it is it's a little rough, but it's no different than this cube. I mean, I'm really satisfied with the results of this cube. This was done after the stemper dampeners. Now, we did not, or I did not, put the TL smoothers on this particular printer, and because I don't see any reason to do that. If I look at the first cube again, there's no real problem with the signal path. So, you know, it all boils down to how fast you're running that machine. If your belts are all tight and your printer is tuned up properly, you shouldn't really need to have any, like there's no salmon skin, you shouldn't really need to have any additional hardware added to the printer. So there you have it. There's the results of 2 cubes at 60 by 60 by 60. No problems at all. Now I want to thank Spool 3D for supplying the stepper dampeners for me, and we put one, like I said, on the x-axis, which is right here, and we also put one on the y-axis. Now, this machine runs beautifully. It has been tuned up. All of the eccentric spacers have been tightened up properly. So this machine is running smooth as a bell. I did throw the spool holder up on top. I used a couple of M3 hammer nuts to put it up on the top. It doesn't add any significant weight or shift this in any way. So I got to tell you, those look spectacular. So just to recap, if you want to make your machine a little bit quieter, then what I would do is invest in some of the stepper motor dampeners that you can put onto your 3D printer. Now, again, thanks Spool 3D for all that they do. Spool 3D, print it right, print it with spool3d.ca. They've got everything that you need, from filaments, printers, and all the accessory parts you could possibly want. I also want to thank all of my Patreons for all of their support and to help keep this show going. You guys are awesome. Love your faces. So we are going to Penticton next week. We will be back on Friday this week with a look at infill. We're going to be talking about infill on Friday's show. So you want to be around for that, for the live stream on Friday at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And that will be our last Friday live stream. So make sure that you check that out. We are changing schedule next week. Next week we will have a recorded show on Monday and a recorded show on Friday, as well as we will have our live stream on Wednesday. So that'll be the new format: recorded show Monday, live stream on Wednesday, and a recorded show on Friday. Again, thank you very much to all my Patreons. If you want to support the show and help us out, get to our next level, by all means, check us out at patreon.com/thefirstlayer. I am going to be doing some longer videos just for my Patreons, just because I don't think they're getting everything that I've promised so far, because we've had to make some changes, and it's convention season, of course. So I want to make sure that there will be recorded material up there just for my Patreons. Thank you very much. And if you guys are always interested, you know I love coffee. Always love coffee. If you're interested in helping out the show and you want to, take part in some little way, you can always buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/thefirstlayer. And I appreciate all of those people who have bought me a coffee in the past, because that all goes to help us get to these conventions. It also helps us to upgrade the printers and show you guys some new stuff. At the end of the day, I want to remind you that if you got something out of this video and it helped you out, by all means subscribe and hit that little notification button, ding, ding, done, and you'll get notified every time that we do a brand new episode here on The First Layer when we upload or we go live. So until next time, my friends, remember the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. Till next time, see you then.